Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another week of student ministry. We are finishing up a series on the life of Joseph this week, and I hope that you will go back and watch the previous messages because there's really a lot that we can learn from Joseph's life. And so, to get us started for today, I want to ask you this question. So, you ever have this time where you're like offended by someone or somebody insults you, and then like they leave and you're like, you didn't know what to say, but like you think about it, for the next day, and you come up with like the world's greatest comeback, like, ooh, I wish I should have said that. Man, that would have really put them in their place, man. And you just, it kind of festers in you, and you're just dwelling on this, and it's just consuming your thoughts, right? Like, I think there's something natural inside of us that we all want some payback when somebody hurts us, offends us, and we want to get them back to make them feel what we felt, right? Like, that's something that I think is super common for us. Now, like, if we've been looking back at the life of Joseph up until this point for the past 4 weeks, what we've learned about him is that, like, his brothers have thrown him into slavery. Like, they plotted to kill him, and then they threw him into slavery. He was sold into slavery in Egypt and put in this man called Potiphar's house, and he was faithful, and he worked, and he just made the most of the situation. But then he was accused of adultery by Potiphar's wife, right? And so when he's accused, he's then thrown into prison to make matters worse, right? So then last week we talked about like how while Joseph is in prison, he has this opportunity to interpret some dreams from the cupbearer to Pharaoh and the baker to Pharaoh. And so Joseph interprets those dreams, and he asks the cupbearer and the baker to remember him when they go back to Pharaoh. You know what they do? They forget about him, right? Like, such is Joseph's life. They continue to forget and just put Joseph in this awful situation where he is still stuck in prison, right? Now, we're going to pick up the story and just fast forward a little bit to bring us to what we're going to learn about today, But basically, Joseph then has this opportunity where he finally is remembered 2 years later after interpreting the dreams, and he's then elevated into this position in Pharaoh's court because Pharaoh has a dream that Joseph can interpret. And it's about this famine that is coming to Egypt, and Joseph says, here's what the dream means, and here's how we can overcome this through God. And so Joseph puts this plan into place. Pharaoh sees the success that Joseph has had, and he elevates him to second in command over all of Egypt. So the famine comes across all the land, and Joseph's family is hurting from the famine. And so they're sending a contingent to go and see where they can find some food and some sustenance, and they know that they can find something in Egypt. And so Joseph's family is coming to Egypt, and you know what they're going to have now? A showdown with Joseph. A showdown with their brother whom they persecuted, sold into slavery, and plotted to kill. Now Joseph is second in command, and he has the authority to make them suffer, to cause them something worse than death. So if you're Joseph, how would you respond? If you were in his shoes, and now you have this opportunity to, you've been thinking about this, you've been dwelling on this for not just days or weeks, but years. Like, how are you going to respond? Are you going to show them who's boss? Are you going to get payback in this situation? And I'm going to tell you, like, you probably want to. But Joseph, throughout this entire time, this is why we can learn so much from him. He was not a man who was vengeance, full of wrath and just pain. Like, he had dealt with his pain. The situations where he was in, like, he trusted in God. He knew that God was in control. He knew that God had a plan and a purpose for him, and that molded and shaped his character. So let's pick up the story in Genesis 45, verses 1 through 7. That's pretty powerful, right? Like Joseph has this great perspective on everything. Like he had already forgiven his brothers before he even met them because he understood God's plan and he trusted that God is good to him and also good to the world by saving Joseph so that he could save his family and ultimately make a way for Jesus to enter into this world and deal with our ultimate problem of sin, right? Like this is amazing, right? That Joseph is able to have this perspective, and I doubt like any of us would have been in that same moment. But what we can learn from Joseph is his character allowed him to grow and to overcome, right? He put a trust in God that was so powerful that God actually dealt with his pain and saved him from his pain, right? Now you probably dwell on the insults and the frustrations and the offenses of others when they happen to us because quite frankly we're hurt, right? And so like we think we're going to feel better by hurting them back, right? Like don't drink that poison. It truly is poison because say, hey, if you think of that comeback in the moment and you say it to them, like, man, if you're not careful, you're going to get punched in the face. Like, if you're not careful, you're going to get something much worse coming back to you. Or, even if that comeback lands, how are you going to feel about it afterwards? If it lands and it crushes them, how is that going to make you feel, right? Like, it's not helping anyone to say, I'm going to pursue this payback, right? And so like hurting people, like we hurt people. And this is why, it's so important for us to understand our bottom line for this week, is that we need to pursue peace instead of payback. We need to pursue peace instead of payback. And ultimately, like the reason why, Joseph is able to do this, and the reason why we will be able to do this is because we have this belief that God is going to deal with our pain and our hurt so that we can be saved and so that we can pursue peace, right? So get a load of these two verses. They're so powerful because God sees you and what you're going through. Psalm 34:18 says this: "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit." God sees your pain and he wants to help, right? And then, his salvation is going to free you to pursue peace with others, right? And then, Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Guys, my hope and prayer for you is that you come to Jesus in the midst of your pain because Jesus wants to lighten your load, to heal your pain, to give you rest. Because he's got a plan for you. He has a purpose for you, just like he had for Joseph, that is going to benefit you and those around you. And I don't want you to miss it. And so some of you are dealing with a lot right now, and you need to really trust God with your pain, because God is going to meet you there and he's going to help you through it. And if you want somebody to talk to, come talk to me. Send us a message on Instagram, or talk to your small group leader. Just send out a text, because we want to help you through what you're going through right now. But you need to put your trust into God so that you can pursue peace instead of payback.